All right. Welcome to podcast number 3 for the Recovery Lab podcast series. Again, my name is Drew Hassin, and I wanted to do like I've done in the past couple, briefly ask the listeners to comment, comment a lot, give me some suggested topics, suggest people, nominate people to be on the podcast. And for those that have interacted with any of the postings, thank you. I want people to share a lot. I want this to be a place where people can go to get information, to learn how they can help or learn how to get some help. Again, I'm going to shamelessly begin my short begathon for any kind of donations you might want to offer, $1 or $2 or $5. My cash tag account is #Daniel Hassin. So enough with that. We have a guest on that I know has a good story and can be the source of some inspiration. She's been through a lot. She gets to be married to me now. So without further ado, Kimberly, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good.
You look good today.
Thank you.
All right. If we had the video, everybody else could see the proof of that. Maybe one day when we get a video camera. Okay, so in keeping with the general format, I have picked people that, like Angela, that I just finished, who is a fantastic source for getting involved in recovery, in promoting recovery. I've had some other friends that I knew had fantastic stories. I know all about yours, so if you lie, I might tell everybody you're fibbing. No, just kidding. In general, I know you've been through a lot. I know you got a lot going on. I know you can help a lot of women out there. So give us a little backstory. Tell people how your addiction progressed. We don't have to stay in that for too long because I really want this to all be focused on what happened and what it's like now, as opposed to what it was like, because everybody knows what it was like.
So when, like I think I've heard before, I had an incredible childhood growing up. I had a loving mother and father, very family oriented, incredible grandparents, incredible other family members, a good education in a private school growing up here in Jackson. I had everything that I ever wanted and needed. So I don't have that story where I was abused or anything terrible happened. Nothing like that ever happened to me. When I was in 9th grade, my dad, who was my hero, he could do no wrong in my eyes, and he got diagnosed with a terminal illness, Lou Gehrig's disease, or ALS. So basically, from 9th grade till 12th grade, when he passed away, I watched him basically deteriorate. It's such a helpless feeling to watch a parent dying and there's nothing you can do about it. You know that there's no cure for the disease. So basically, you're just watching them die is exactly what you're doing. And that was pretty traumatic for me. I mean, enough trauma that I spent 10 to 15 years in drug addiction over that. So when my dad died, when I was a senior in high school, a month after I graduated, I went on to Ole Miss for my freshman year against the advice of everyone who said, maybe you need to take a semester off, deal with the loss of your father, things like that. In my mind, absolutely not. I was going to escape the pain that I was carrying. I was going to go away, and I was going to do everything I could to escape the pain that I was feeling. Let me backtrack a little bit and say that when I was in high school, I was diagnosed with ADHD and prescribed Adderall, like a lot of people are. Didn't really connect that I was getting high off of it until I went to Ole Miss. And found myself not being able to function without it, and really panicking, thinking, what's wrong with me? Why can't I function without this medicine? And when I don't have it, I sleep for days. And so that was kind of scary. And I didn't know what to do with that. And I can remember, in my mind, I still remember it as being a big deal.
When you ran out?
When I ran out, exactly. But that happened often because I took so many. But when I went into a girl's dorm room that was on my hall, who I knew had Adderall, and I literally snuck in there and took some Adderall
like a thief in the night
out of her bottle and had enough to keep going for, a few more days. So I stole from a girl that lived, in the dorms at Ole Miss.
Didn't want to steal so many, she hid them somewhere else, though.
Right. I remember thinking, gosh, what is wrong with me? Something's wrong. Like, this is not okay. And so that progressed to, I started drinking in 10th grade socially. It was fun. Everybody else was doing it. I do it on the weekends. I love to drink. It was my way of escaping. It was my way of feeling comfortable, and just forgetting about insecurities of being a girl, growing up, and just gave me some confidence. And so when I'm at Ole Miss, fast forward back to that, and my drinking was beginning to get out of control. This has been a running joke in my family for a while, but the end of my first semester, and also the end of my first year at Ole Miss, I ended up with a 0.0 GPA.
Buckshot.
A buckshot, because I never went to class. Maybe 2 or 3 times I was stuck in my dorm room, or I was at a bar. I was drinking. I was taking Adderall. I was finding people that had Xanax. I was doing anything I could to just escape that loss of losing my father. So that's where it all began for me, was, having some trauma that I didn't know what to do with, and then it turning into, just kind of slowly doing what I thought was socially acceptable with every other Ole Miss student, but mine turned into be a much bigger deal. So fast forward, and I apologize if any of my years run together, because there was a lot of years that a lot of stuff happened, and I can't exactly remember everything very good. But so I ended up turning my alcohol and Adderall addiction into a pain pill addiction, and went to rehab the first time. I don't even remember what year it was. Long story short, I will say this: I ended up going to 12 different treatment centers. Took me to the number 13 to get my life together and to finally get sober.
Well, this is a common practice. I can see in my own life how you feel the heat is up in your personal life, and you're like, let me check out for a minute.
Absolutely.
Can I get in the Harbor House? Can I
Yes.
get in the whatever? And then everybody, gets off your ass for a little while.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly what happened.
Sure.
I knew I could run to treatment all those times and get out of hot water, or have a safe place to be. And to be honest with you, what kept me going back to treatment centers is I was homeless. I didn't have anywhere to go. My mom was done with me. My grandmother was beyond done. My whole family, I didn't have anywhere or anybody, and it was my only resort. It was to keep me from sleeping under a bridge.
Sure. To
go to treatment centers, to have a place to eat, and I never really took it seriously. But I apologize if my story's all over the place.
You're doing good.
But so I ended up getting pregnant and pretty young, and ended up getting married, and ended up having another son. And so that's this is going to play into my story a little bit later, that I have 3 children that are not the child that I have now with Drew, our 2-year-old, who's the greatest little blessing in the whole entire world. He really is. He has saved me in so many ways. But I have 3 other children that I don't have a relationship with. And I've struggled going back and forth, like, am I going to talk about this? Am I not? Because a lot of the people that may listen to this have no idea that I have other children that I don't see. That's where addiction took me. That is the pits of absolute hell that addiction took me to, robbing every single thing that I had in life. My relationship with the 3 of them is a work in progress. I will say that for the first time in years, I got a text message back from my oldest son, and he's 16. So I got a text message back from him, and that was the first line of communication that I had been waiting for a very long time.
A testament to your hard work and your diligence.
Just kind of sticking with it and hoping that these children come around and see a different person than they saw for those years, which was a mother that was in and out of treatment centers and could not get her life together.
Look, I don't want to interrupt you too much because I think it's important to let the person just talk. But I also think it's important for the people that are listening to know what kind of drugs you were doing and what took you down through there.
So when I was at treatment for the first time at Harbor House, I was introduced to someone, and her drug of choice was Dilaudid, and she was an IV drug user. And this honestly could have been my second treatment center. It actually was. I had already been somewhere else previously. Doesn't matter.
Prescription pills.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I met someone, and it was IV Dilaudid drug use, and I had arrived. The quickest high I have ever felt in my entire life, and the quickest numbing over my whole entire body. I never went back after that. I was an IV drug user, and I would do anything and everything to get my drugs. And I was able to escape that pain of losing custody of my children, having a failed marriage, having a family that does not talk to me.
Yeah, it's that cycle of self-defeating behavior. You know, we screwed up and we made some mistakes, and then we use more to cover up the guilt, shame, and remorse we feel for having made those mistakes. And then we feel even more guilt, shame, and remorse for having used to cover. And so we fuel that cycle. It's
absolutely a vicious cycle. And that continued for me for years. Like I said, numerous treatment centers. My addiction ended up taking me to pretty significant IV heroin addiction, which is what I would say in the end that was my drug of choice.
Well, heroin's become so much more prevalent than Dilaudid.
Right. I've OD'd in the streets of New Orleans before and was basically left for dead by some people, and still to this day don't know who found me or anything like that, but someone called and saved me, and the police came and the ambulance came and saved me. But I mean, I was nothing but a hot mess, and like I said, you know, I came from a good family. I came from my dad was an attorney. He was well respected. You know, I had doctors and lawyers and everybody like that in my family. And I always thought in my mind drug addiction was like some crackhead walking the street. And never in a million years did I think it would look like me. But it absolutely looked just like me, because that's exactly who I am. And so I ended up finding myself at a faith-based treatment center in Mobile, Alabama, for all women, thanks to an intervening aunt, is what we'll call her, and she felt it God put it on her heart. She heard how bad off I was, that I was on the streets of Jackson. And at this time, I will say that I was with Drew during all this. We were out there together, and we've seen the worst of each other, and we've seen the best of each other. So, so she came and drove all the way from Texas and took Drew and I to treatment. And he went to a faith-based treatment center in Lucedale. I went to a faith-based treatment center in Mobile. Mine was for all women. His was for all men. That was what looked like the end of our story, but it wasn't. But that's another story for another time. So
tell people, because it is astonishing if they, anyway, I know if they knew me before I got sober, that a faith-based treatment center would have been, that I would endorse those things at all, is nothing short of miraculous. But some of my questions that I asked Johnny and Luke were, like, how many times did you try to get sober? We've kind of been through that. How many times did you relapse? We've been through that. What was the turning point? We're kind of at the turning point in the story for you now. What happened to you at the Home of Grace, the faith-based treatment center you went to? What was different?
in the beginning, it was just the same thing. I didn't have any. Exactly. Yeah. I didn't have anywhere to go. We were in a hotel room, and that hotel room was done. There was no more money.
We had, yeah.
That was the last night.
No dope, no nothing.
Right. It was just, I was either going to kill myself or I was going to go somewhere. And so I against what I wanted to do, I decided to go to treatment. And at that treatment center, I found a glimpse of hope, and I found a relationship with my higher power, who is God, Jesus. And I realized that I was created for a reason, and I realized that there's more to me and there's more to Kimberly than, just a drug addict on the streets who's completely ruined her whole entire life.
Chronic ne'er-do-well.
Right. So once I found, I think it was at an altar call at what we called chapels, and I found that glimpse of hope and that feeling that I searched for so long, which was to feel a part of, to feel loved.
A sense of community, belonging, yes. Redemption.
Absolutely.
Hope, belief that things can get better.
Yes. And I can't exactly describe it. It's a feeling that, I can't put into words. It's pretty amazing. But I realized, at that point that I'm either going to die or I'm going to get sober. And I really didn't want to, I wanted to die, but I really didn't want to die because I have these other children out there and I've got to get back to them. That was my goal for a long time, and it still is. I know there's more for me. So there was a few women in my life that were mentors to me that play a huge part in my recovery. If they're listening, thanks to Hillary and Shannon. They were two incredibly big parts of my story. They helped me stay on the path. They helped me feel a part of a community. They mentored me, took me through the Bible. They helped me grow my relationship, and they had what I wanted. And I wanted those things desperately that they had. They had freedom. They had jobs. They had cars. They had a life again. And even though it seems so hard for me to even imagine myself having a vehicle and having a home and a family and good things happening, I was so incredibly unstable. That's what I was craving, was stability. All I wanted was stability. And I had searched for so many years. I can remember being in treatment centers and laying there and thinking I would do anything if my mom would just let me come home. I just want to go home. But where is home? Because I didn't have a home. Right. I'm too old to be living at my mom's. I'm an adult now, and I don't even know where home is. I don't have a home. And so I really found at that faith-based treatment center what I believe I was searching for the whole entire time since I lost my father and before that. And it was just to feel loved by, my father, my heavenly father, my father again, that died. Just to feel like I had that protector and that person that really loved me, and that that everything was going to be okay.
Well, Yana stands for "You Are Not Alone" for a reason.
Right.
I mean, I think we all long for that sense of belonging and that sense of community. I mean, this has been as true as however old AA is.
Absolutely. So, in the beginning of my recovery, my sobriety date is January the 3rd, 2017. That's the last time I used any drugs or any alcohol, and that's a pretty big deal to me.
It's a huge deal.
I couldn't put together more than a day outside of a treatment center for a long time.
Well,
So
I'd be remiss without saying what I say to you often, that I mean, it's a miracle for a man to stay sober, but it really is doubly true for women, because women don't run out of places to stay, and they don't run out of dope to do. And I think that's a point that doesn't get said enough. Maybe it's because I think it's true, and what I think is true is better than what everybody else thinks.
absolutely.
But, yeah. I mean, it really is true that it is just exponentially more difficult for a woman to stay sober because of those things that, you're going to have somewhere to sleep, and you're going to have drugs to do. Now, there's a trade-off for it that's unpleasant, but yeah, so it's meaningful.
Absolutely.
And it's impactful. All right, so following along my guide here. So we've got you. We found out what kind of drugs you did. Found out where you went to get sober. Now I know you didn't stay or live in a sober living system that I was plugging earlier, like Oxford House or Livingston or some others, but I know you stayed in something like a sober living house. How did that help your recovery? How did that help your growth?
So I ended up staying for the 3-month program at Home of Grace. For
The primary program?
Primary program was 3 months. I needed every single day of that, and I needed more than that, because when I graduated, my mom came to my graduation and she was proud of me and yada yada yada, but I still didn't have anywhere to go. I still didn't know how to live. I'm still technically homeless. So I decided I was going to stay in Mobile, and I was going to be a part of their grad dorm, which is what we called it. It's sober living for the Home of Grace, and it's on campus. And I stayed there for a little over a year. I lived. They taught me how to get a job, get to work on time, what to do with my money when I made money, what to do with when bad things happened, how to stay sober through that. How do I deal
to have that support system?
Right. How do I deal with this relationship and this longing to be a mother to these other children that I don't have? How do I stay sober through that? And that place and those women there taught me how to do those things. They gave me accountability. I know that you've said a lot that Oxford House is really special to you, and a lot of your greatest memories are there with those guys. And I can truly say that the Home of Grace grad dorm and the people that I was there with and the community that I had there, that was truly one of my happiest times. Not that I'm not happy right now being married to you, anything like that, but that was like a new beginning for
special.
me.
Yeah.
It was a new beginning. It was me learning how to live life again, and it's very sweet and special to me, and I couldn't have done it without that place and without those women that mentored me and helped me. And that's where I started to get into cosmetology. I had a salon owner who ended up becoming a huge part of my life, Deanna, if you're listening, and she knew my story, and she believed in me, and she gave me a chance to come apprentice at the hair salon. And I was doing hair and living the dreams that I thought had died in me, which was, stuff like that.
Some of those promises coming true.
Absolutely. I made friends in Mobile. I ended up moving out of the grad dorm and got a house. And this is where another very, very, very important ministry comes into my life, and that's Ransom Ministries. And that's Matt and Tara Armbruster, and they are absolutely amazing people. I don't talk to them enough anymore, but they helped me in so many ways.
Well, they help a lot of people down there.
Absolutely.
And if anybody is curious how they can learn more or help, Ransom Ministries is on Facebook, I know, and they're always doing stuff, and they're good people.
Absolutely. They help people in treatment centers. They help people. They show you how to. They show you job skills. They show you how to get back out into the working world, and they became family to me. They absolutely became my family, and so I'm kind of lost.
You're doing good. What, by comparison, is different about your recovery now than in previous attempts? What do you do that's a success?
Every day I put one foot in front of the other. Every day I get up. I don't get high. I don't get drunk. And I just keep going.
Don't use no matter what.
Yes, absolutely. No matter what, I do not get drunk and I do not get high. And there's been days that were hard and days that were so that I've had to deal with stuff that was so painful that I wanted to get high, make it all go away.
Because it works.
Right. That was my solution for such a long time. And I know now that if I just keep going forward, I can remember that Kimberly sitting in treatment centers thinking I would give anything for that stability. I would give anything for a family. I would give anything for a job and a home of my own.
Normalcy.
Right. I can remember longing for that, like to the point where it became physical. Like I could feel the longing for it. And I have that today only because I kept putting one foot in front of the other. When it seemed hopeless, when it seemed like there was no miracles for Kimberly out there. Like it was real easy for me to think, well, everybody else, their miracles are there. Their miracles are there. They're getting custody of their kids back. They're getting this. They're getting blessed with this and that. And mine just didn't come as quickly. But I just kept going. And community was so important to me in Mobile. I just can't say enough about all those people that I've named. Like, they helped me become the person that I am today. Absolutely. I don't know if you want me to go ahead and tell kind of the rest of my story, or because I do want to touch a little bit on the fact that one of the greatest things that I as a woman believe that sobriety and God has given me is the opportunity to be a mother again.
He is pretty awesome.
He is. We have a 2-year-old, and he'll be 3 before we know it, actually. And he's the absolute joy of my life. He, like I said earlier, he has saved me in so many ways. And I don't know, a lot of people frown on people saying this, but it's what's worked for me. And if it's worked for me, then I feel like I should share it. And I can absolutely say that there's days that I wanted to get high and that I would look at Thomas's face, and it was not an option. It was not an option to lose another child to an addiction.
Well, here, you have this motivation right here.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think we can all kind of agree that the thing you hear in treatment, if you're getting sober for somebody else, it's not going to work. And that's absolutely true. I know that going to treatment to get my mom and dad off my ass is not sufficient or suitable motivation. But yeah, there are days that are tough for me, and I think I do not want to live through explaining to my kids why I'm holed up at the OYO,
Right.
or why did you get arrested again? You know that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I don't want that. I don't want that for them. I don't want that for me. And
I have today, like, I remember when you were interviewing Luke, I think it was Luke, and he was talking about he has keys to his parents' house. Like, I have those things that, like, my mom would regularly during my active addiction, she would block my phone number for weeks, months. You know, like, I could not get in touch with a woman. And I have an ongoing amazing relationship with my mom today. I go to her house all the time. She comes here all the time. She's an active part of our son Thomas's life. I have a sister who's also in recovery, who ended up coming to treatment after I went to treatment at the same place, and so our stories are similar because we both got sober together at the same place. But I have to pinch myself, and it's such a good reminder. So thank you for having me on to share my story, because it's such a good reminder of how much I had truly been blessed and how much I have been given back almost all of the things that were taken from me during addiction. Absolutely. And that's the life that I have today was one that I couldn't have even imagined was for me. You know, it was for everybody else, but it was not for me. To have a home to come home to have a purpose, to have a job, to have employees that like me and trust me, you know, is such a big deal. And to just be a good person today, and to not be doing dirt all the time. You know, not be doing some kind of dirt all the time, trying to get high. Yeah.
All right. We've done a pretty good job of talking or listening to your story, and I'm getting close to the end of my questions here. So, we went over what you do well in recovery, and I think the chief takeaway is stick-to-itiveness.
Absolutely.
And I can't underscore enough how in my own life it's been important for me to adopt the attitude of no matter what, I'm not going to get high. I may not know what to do, but I sure as hell know what not to do. What do you do poorly in recovery?
Are you asking this on purpose?
No, it's on my list.
I am not a good fellow AA member.
The reason this question is on here is because I want people to go, here's something that I know I should be doing and that I can do differently.
I could absolutely be a better meeting goer. I could be more involved in AA. But like I said, I have a system that works for me. And my system is, you know, being married to a fellow drug addict who keeps me on my toes and keeps me sober, you know, and having him and having a child and having the stability and the life that I have today, and just continuing to move forward and doing esteemable things to create self-esteem, and having good friends in recovery is absolutely key.
What are some goals you have so that when I have you back on, we can trace and see how well you are, how far along you are on the path of achieving some additional goals?
Well, of course, an every single day goal is hopefully if I'm back on here that I'll still be sober.
Sure.
One day at a time. That's a given. My number one huge massive goal is to be a part of my other children's life again. That's what I long for, what I strive for. It's a work in progress. It's typically too painful that I don't talk about it. It's not something I openly share about myself with people because it's just, I mean, how do you tell people, it's not like I woke up one day and was like, hey, I want to be a drug addict and lose custody of my children.
Well, look, I have long since thought that the more people we get on here to just be gut level honest and lay bare these shortcomings and these consequences, my own personal professional shenanigans, my own personal shenanigans, the more we're honest about these things, the more other people will hear it and say, you know what, if she can do that, I can. If he can do that, I can. Because growing hope, I think, is the chief mandate for all people in recovery.
Absolutely. If there is hope for a drug addict like I was, who was absolutely hopeless, and there's hope for people out there, absolutely, and not just for certain people. There's hope for every single person. When a case looks hopeless, there's never not hope.
Right.
And it's so hard to instill that into a freshly sobering drug addict. That's the last thing they feel. I since
thought that it would work for everybody else but me. I thought somehow I was different in that I was, either too far gone or I was too this or too that or the best, worst, and it's just not. There's a formula for success that works for people. Getting involved, sticking to it, and no matter what, just don't get high.
Absolutely.
All right, well, look, what are some things that you might want to say here at the end that I haven't asked you? Is there anything in particular you want to offer up?
I can't think of anything. I can't say enough about community and the people that God put in my life in the beginning of my sobriety. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for all those people that played a huge role in my life.
Angela said something in the, it'll be posted pretty much simultaneously with this one, about how she saw on Facebook that there was an event at the Capitol and she was 7 months sober. And I thought, how amazing is that? And I likened it to my off-ramp analogy about this was her on-ramp to recovery. I mean, she was already sober for 7 months, but you know what I mean? And how she just got involved. She just went, and it lit this fire of service in her. And I thought to myself, what are the opportunities that I miss by wanting to watch one more episode of whatever the hell's on Hulu or Netflix?
Yeah.
Like the terminal list is good, but is it worth missing out on something? How am I shortchanging myself? So it's food for thought.
Absolutely. And one other thing I think that I want to say before we end is that, I'm available. If there's anyone out there struggling, if there's any woman who's given up hope, that I'm available and I will help in any way I can. Because, like I said, if I can do it, then I promise others can do it.
Amen.
So.
All right. Well, thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
I know it's not a long trip home. All right. Thanks, everybody. Look, post, comment, get involved, give back, do something, and just don't get high. And I look forward to having Keenan Wald from the Pine Zone next week. So y'all tune in then. Oh, and nominate some people to be on the podcast. All right. Till then, hang in there.